The UFC is returning to Abu Dhabi once again, where Reinier de Ridder is getting the Robert Whittaker test. After pulling off a massive upset earlier this year against Bo Nickel, this is a big opportunity for de Ridder to possibly get himself towards the title. And Robert Whittaker looking to bounce back after getting his jaw broken against Khamzat Chimaev last year in Abu Dhabi as well. We got a great fight card to look forward to this Saturday. And for Fight Night standards, man, I don't know if it gets any better. Seems like every time they go to Abu Dhabi, they want to stack it up. And overall, one matchup that we did lose was Movsar Evloev versus Aaron Pico. I'm not sure if they're trying to find Pico a replacement, but if they do, I hope they do. But if they do, I won't be able to break it down in this video because I'm recording it before UFC 318. But we're going to go through every single fight on the card. We're going to break it down. I'll give you my early lean, my early pick. We also don't have a ton of odds as of right now. We got about 8 odds for 12 of the fights, I believe, on the card. So bear with me there, but got to get this recorded before I head to Vegas for the weekend so I can have it out to you guys on Sunday morning. But before we do that, we normally would go through how the bets went for UFC 318, but obviously we can't do that because it hasn't happened yet, but hopefully all went well. If you want all the bets, jump in the Homofied Picks Premium membership. Use code HeyJive. Get you a 5-day free trial. We did very well on UFC Nashville. I expect us to do very well on UFC 318, but normally I'd recap it. Can't do it now, but that just leaves us more time to talk about the fights. First fight of the night looks like it's going to be Damon Blackshear versus Davey Grant. It's a solid matchup. I think it's a solid test, for Damon Blackshear. He's coming off a dominant victory in his last fight against Leal, and he looked great on the feet. I didn't really expect that fight to play out on the feet like it did, but it looked like Damon knew he was just way taller, way longer, and way faster than Leal. And he just used his jab, used his kicks, and 30-27 to a decision. I really didn't think it was that close. I think Damon controlled most of that fight, and it seemed to me like he had an emphasis going in there, trying to outstrike him for 15 minutes. Damon's mainly, I would say his best attribute is his grappling. He didn't really try to use it in that fight. Davey Grant, on the other hand, coming off a win, even at 39 years of age, against Ramon Tavares his last time out at UFC Tampa. I was there in attendance. It was a classic Davey Grant fight. Skirt around the octagon, hit him with some big shots, avoid the big shots, and land more than your opponent. Coming in here, I think that's going to be a little bit tougher to do against Damon Blackshear. Now, Damon is more of a Muay Thai striker, so I could see moments, where Davey Grant is getting his hands off on Damon Blackshear, but ultimately, I think Damon's going to have to mix in some grappling here. I don't know that he's going to be able to win a 15-minute striking battle against Davey Grant, or at least win it cleanly. He's minus 252. I think Damon is a good fighter, but he has had some setbacks. The knockout loss to Montel Jackson didn't look great. And I think Davey Grant does have some pop in his hands. I don't know if it's Montel Jackson type of pop. But if he's going to play that striking game with Davey Grant, I think he's given himself opportunities to lose. And Davey Grant is a pretty solid grappler himself. He's a very well-rounded fighter overall. So I'm going to lean towards Damon Blackshear right now. I just think he's more in his prime. I think he has the skill set to beat Davey Grant here. But Davey is one of those veterans that you just can never count out. He's going to be competitive with a lot of guys, and I think Damon Blackshear may, win a competitive decision here, but I still think he's probably going to win. So Damon Blackshear is going to be the early pick, the early lean, but a great fight to start off the night. We go to the next one, and it drops off a little bit, man. Muhammad Yahya, if you couldn't tell by the name, represents that region of the world and actually represents the UAE. One of the only fighters to represent the UAE. I guess Khamzat Chimaev represents the UAE now, but Muhammad Yahya is a guy that is born and bred in the UAE. So they want him to do well, but he has not done well in the UFC. He's 0-2. His first fight was against Trevor Peek. He lost the decision there, and then he takes on Cowie Fernandez, and he gets TKO'd in round 1, and it was not a good look. But Cowie Fernandez, beat Guram Kutateladze his next fight. Looks pretty solid. So I guess you could say that loss ages well, but we really haven't seen much from Muhammad Yahya to be in love with, that's for sure. There's no odds on this fight, but he's taking on Stephen Nguyen, who's 0-1 in the UFC, lost his UFC debut against Jarno Aarons. He's one of these guys that was on the Contender Series 3 times. 3 times. He won 2 of them and finally got the contract his third time when he faced AJ Cunningham. If you know UFC, you know AJ Cunningham, and AJ Cunningham isn't the world's best fighter, but he did knock him out in round 2. That was a pretty solid performance, I would say, from Stephen Nguyen. What does Stephen Nguyen want to do? He wants to establish the jab. He wants to get into a high-pace striking affair. And I think Muhammad Yahya just probably isn't going to be very comfortable with that. I mean, I don't think Yahya's a guy that has the best cardio. I don't really think his striking is that good either. And I don't know that Stephen Nguyen is some world beater, but I think he's probably good enough to beat Muhammad Yahya. I expect Stephen Nguyen to be the favorite here. Even though we don't have odds, I'm just going to throw that out there. I think Stephen Nguyen's probably going to be the favorite. But, I mean, this guy he's 33, second fight in the UFC. I don't really see him doing great things in the UFC, but they're giving him one of the worst fighters on the roster. So I'm going to take Stephen Nguyen for the early pick, the early lean. And let's move on to the next one. This is a very interesting one because we got a UFC debuter here in Marcus Buchecha coming in as the favorite at -200 against the guy in Martin Buday, which, as you can see on the screen, he's 6-1 in the UFC. So, I mean, he's shown he can beat the lower level heavyweights. His only loss was to Shamil, the Blob Gaziev. So you got to give him some respect for that, for being that's his only loss. They're going to size up, relatively the same. Buday is usually weighing in around 260, 265. Buchecha has been in one championship in his MMA career. He's making his debut at 35, but this is heavyweights. They can make their debuts a little bit later. And I really think the guy is a question mark because he's kind of grapple or bust. I think his striking is okay, but that's just for heavyweight standards. I mean, for heavyweight standards, you really just got to be able to throw hard and you got to be able to take a punch. He can throw hard and he can take a punch, but mainly he wants to get the fight to the ground. His wrestling is not that bad for a heavyweight. He's no Walter Walker out there rolling for heel hooks, but if he gets you down to the ground, this dude's jiu-jitsu accolades are off the charts. So I expect this guy to look to get this fight to the ground. But Martin Buday, he's a big dude, and he's not exactly the easiest to take down. And Buday's main thing when he started MMA was jiu-jitsu. So I don't think his ground game is going to be that bad, but I think there's levels to it. And I think that's why Buchecha is the favorite here. His only loss came to his one guy, his last name is Khan, in one championship. That's his only loss. He lost the decision. It was fairly competitive. It was not actually in a cage. It was in one of the rings with the ropes. So I don't know if that played a factor, but I'm assuming it did, especially with the takedowns. He lost to that guy by a decision, and then that guy went on to beat Anatoly Malakhin, which was the guy that was undefeated in one championship that had beat Rainier de Ridder twice. But that's at heavyweight, very different when we're talking about Rainier de Ridder, who's fighting at middleweight now, to the heavyweight champion of one championship. That guy that he lost to beat Anatoly Malakhin. So that loss ages well. There were a lot of moments in that fight, though, where he did not look good. The problem here, where I see for Buday, is he doesn't really do anything that great either. I think he's improving because he trains, with Tom Aspinall at that gym in Manchester where there's a lot of heavyweights there. I think they got like a room full of 5 or 6, maybe even 7, pretty solid heavyweights, either in UFC or from KSW. Good room there, and I think he's improving. But is he going to be able to stuff the takedowns from Buchecha? I think maybe a couple, but Buchecha's pretty relentless with it. And if you sprawl on him and you drop to your knees, he loves to climb to that back, and then he's just going to be the better jiu-jitsu player. It doesn't matter if Buday has pretty solid jiu-jitsu for heavyweight standards. It ain't Buchecha. So I'm going to take Buchecha for the early pick, the early lean. I think he comes in there, and I think he gets a W. I mean, I'm going to have to watch a lot more tape on this one, but from the tape that I did watch on Buchecha, the dude is dangerous. He's a good athlete. He throws pretty hard for heavyweight standards, can take a punch. His cardio is not terrible. It's not great, but it's not terrible. And I've never been a huge Buday guy, so I'm going to take Buchecha for the early pick, the early lean. But very interested to see what Buchecha does in the heavyweight division because they need players, man. They need players real bad. I'm interested. Let's move on. Flyweight bout here. We got Asu Almabayev taking on Jose Ochoa. There's no odds on this one just yet. Asu Almabayev was supposed to face Ramazan Temirov, which is going to be a great fight as well, but it looks like Temirov popped for some illegal substances. He doesn't claim that they were steroids, but they were illegal substances. So he has to pull out. In steps Jose Ochoa, who just fought in June at UFC Atlanta. I had a big bet on him to finish Cody Durden, and he gets his first UFC win in dramatic fashion. Round 2 knockout. Beautiful stuff. I love this dude Ochoa's fighting style, man. He is a walk forward, all action, southpaw, throws a lot of kicks, throws really hard with his hands, got solid jiu-jitsu as well. Just one of these shoot-to-box guys that is going to go in for the kill every single time. Almabayev, on the other hand, not the case, dude. He's looking to get the fight to the ground. He's looking to take your back. He's looking to smother you on the ground. And this is very tough for me because I expect Almabayev to be a favorite here. Ochoa's, 8-1 in his pro career. Almabayev's 21-3. Almabayev's faced pretty solid competition in the UFC so far. So I expect Almabayev to be a favorite. But there are times where, Almabayev is getting the takedowns, but not really doing much with them. And I expect Ochoa to just be relentless, just not fucking off. And I think Ochoa could maybe have some opportunities to win this fight, but it might be just too much too early. So I'm going to take Almabayev for the early pick, the early lean, because it's a tough ass. Short notice stepping in against Almabayev. He's been in there with Manel Kopp. Granted, he didn't look good, but he's 4-1 in the UFC, man. And I think it's just a little bit too much too soon. So Almabayev's the early pick. Let's move on. Carlos Leal. I didn't think he would ever take a fight in Abu Dhabi again after he lost a split decision to Rinat Fakhretdinov. One of the worst robberies of all time. I didn't think he would ever take a fight in Abu Dhabi again, but he did. He did. And not only that, he took a fight in Abu Dhabi against another OV. I mean, I guess he wants redemption. I think he's probably looking to get a finish in this fight because if it goes to the scorecards, he's probably ain't going to like what they're reading. Muslim Salikhov is going to be a huge dog here, and I think it's for good reason. Because Carlos Leal, to me, I think he's a real problem, man. Because you're talking about a guy that has really fast hands, big power, very strong in the clinch, really solid takedown defense. And if he does get taken down, he gets up right away. So, I mean, what is Salikhov going to do here? Probably going to be looking to stay at range, establish his kicks. But he's 41, man. He's 41. Carlos Leal's 31 in his prime. He's got acne everywhere. He's off the sauce. I think he could get a finish here against Salikhov, man. I really do. So I like Carlos Leal here for the early pick, the early lean. He's minus 405. They're not going to give it to you for free, but I think Carlos Leal gets it done. I mean, Salikhov, I said it his last fight. What's his most likely win condition? Spinning back kick to the head. And what does he do? He gets a spinning back kick to the head. So, I mean, he's still got the kicks in his arsenal. It just seems like he's a little bit slow. He's still fairly athletic for 41. But is he going to look to wrestle Carlos Leal? Maybe. Is he going to have success with it? I doubt it. I doubt that he's going to get clean entries on Carlos Leal's hips. So he's going to have to strike with him. And I think Carlos Leal is one of those guys that is going to march you down and look for those big combinations. I don't think Salikhov's going to like it. So Carlos Leal's the early pick. Let's move on to the next one. We got some women's MMA. This fight, I believe, was supposed to be on UFC 318, but they moved it to Abu Dhabi. No odds for this one yet either. Amanda Ribas steps in here against Tabitha Baby Shark Ricci. Ricci coming off the loss to Yan Xiaonan where she got shut out the entire fight, man. It was not a good look for Tabitha Ricci. And I knew it was going to come, but I didn't know it was going to be that bad. I mean, Yan Xiaonan just schooled her in the striking. The footwork was on point. Tabitha Ricci just didn't know what to do. She was too small, second-guessing herself, wasn't pushing forward. She was getting hit with big shots, couldn't get any takedowns, and she lost the fight clearly. Now against Amanda Ribas. Ribas has fallen on a couple losses in a row, but it's against Mackenzie Dern, and it's against Rose Namajunas. I think those are two pretty solid fighters. Now, obviously, she was a favorite to beat Mackenzie Dern because she had beaten her already before. So maybe this is, a decline for Amanda Ribas, but I don't really see it that way, man. I think Amanda Ribas is still good enough to pick and poke from the outside and deal with Tabitha Ricci's, pressure and her spazzing type of striking where she's not really setting anything up. She's just kind of throwing her hands. I don't want to say she's a weight bully because she's not. she's more of a physicality bully. That's Tabitha Ricci's game plan because she's so small. She's got to make her way into the pocket, and I think she just throws blind volume, hoping something lands to get inside of the pocket and then maybe push her up against the cage, look for a takedown. It's a lot of physicality. I mean, obviously, you look at any of her training videos, not a lot of it is like drilling stuff as far as, striking goes, drilling stuff on the ground. It's a lot of like, trying to get big and strong so that she can throw these girls around. Amanda Ribas, the girl that fights at 125 every so often, I think her size is going to be able to deal with Tabitha Ricci. So I'm going to take Amanda Ribas here for the early pick, the early lean. I kind of expect her to be the favorite. If I'm taking her for the early pick, and I expect her to be a favorite. I'm interested to see where they drop the line, but I'll take Amanda Ribas for the early pick here. Interesting one, though. I mean, it's women's MMA. Things could get greasy. It could go to a greasy decision. You never know. But Ribas, early lean. Let's move on to the next one. Aslan, Billy Elekana. Another fight with no odds. But it's an interesting fight because I think Aslan had so much hype. Don't know why. But he had so much hype because he comes into the UFC. He's this guy with like all first-round knockouts. He gets a knockout against Turkali late in the fight. They kind of go, scrap back and forth. He gets it late. And then his next one, he gets an easy knockout against Rafael Sequeira, who's an absolute bum. And then people are all over him against Iwan Kudalaba. Like this guy, Aslan, is just able to knock out anybody. Not the case, man. Not the case. I mean, as soon as that fight hit the ground, it was over. It was over. I mean, Kudalaba is not like some amazing submission grappler, but he got that fight to the ground. It was done. I don't think Aslan can grapple. I know he can hit hard. I know he's got some solid leg kicks, and he's got a decent chin, but he can't grapple, man. Billy Elekana made his UFC debut on the first pay-per-view of the year, UFC 311, on short notice against Bogdan Guskov, who we'll talk about later, and he got a takedown. Got to the guy's back, almost got the rear naked choke in the first round, and then he got his back taken, nearly got choked out at the end of round one, and then in round two, he just completely gassed out. It was on short notice. I mean, the guy he's not an amazing fighter, but I think he's got the tools to maybe pull off a win here against Aslan. Now, I expect Aslan to be a favorite, man, because I think Elekana, he's not really done anything that great. I mean, I guess you could look into the fight he had with Guskov and maybe get some things, but I don't think he's going to get much respect for it because at the end of the day, he lost. But he's a tall guy. I mean, not super tall, but lengthy, southpaw striker, likes to use his body kick, his head kick. Solid 1-2. It's not going to jump out to you as like, wow, this guy's a good striker, but it's serviceable. And I think his ground game could come into play here. Aslan probably going to have a power advantage, probably going to have a striking advantage. So I could see it either way. I think Aslan is going to be the favorite here, and I think he probably wins. But Elekana's tough, man. I mean, Guskov hits like a truck, and Guskov couldn't get him out of there with his shots. Elekana had to gas out and kind of be like, I have nothing left in my tank, so ref, please step in. And the ref said no. So then Guskov just grabbed his neck and tapped. So, I mean, it was weird. It was a very weird fight. I'm going to take Aslan for the early pick here. I think the power just might be too much for Elekana, but one I got to look at a little bit more. And if you're going to give me huge plus money on Elekana, I mean, I might have to take a shot, but I expect Aslan to be a favorite here. I'll take him for the early pick. Brings us to the man we were just talking about, Bogdan Guskov, coming in as the dog against Nikita Krylov, who just got sniped by Dominic Reyes earlier this year. Once again, minus 200 for Nikita Krylov, around what he was against Dominic Reyes. Guskov, 4-1 in his last 5, 3-1 in the UFC, dropped his debut to Volkan Oezdemir. But since then, knocked out Zach Pauga, knocked out Ryan Spann, and then submitted Billy Elekana, who we just talked about. I think Guskov has, some pretty big power with his hands. Kind of an awkward striker, guy with keeps his hands very low, kind of has really weird movement, and he'll hit you with shots that you don't really see because they're not regular shots. They're not like 1-2s. They're not just clean hooks. They're kind of weird shovel uppercuts, shovel hooks. Very weird striking from Bogdan Guskov, but he makes it work. Krylov, on the other hand, the guy at his base is a wrestler, but he likes to stand and strike. He does have power in his hands, but it's a very awkward striking as well. I mean, the way he was moving against Dominic Reyes, I was like, dude, Dominic Reyes is setting something up. This is not going to be good. And then bang, down the pipe, snipes him as he's rushing in like this. This is not how you fight Dominic Reyes. I could see, Krylov pushing the wrestling here against Guskov. I think that's probably his best path to victory because Guskov, I don't think, is some amazing grappler. I mean, you'll see the submission win on his record, his last fight, but it wasn't really a submission win. Krylov, I'm going to take him for the early pick, but man, Guskov, if he's does have time, to strike with Krylov on the feet, I think he could probably knock out Krylov as well. I mean, this fight has finish written all over it. I could see Krylov finishing Guskov on the ground or knocking him out. I think Guskov could KO Krylov. So I think this fight has finish written all over it, but I'm going to take Krylov for the early pick as of right now. More UFC experience. There are some questions with him, though. He's taken some time off, weird periods of inactivity, and then he comes back after a long layoff and gets sniped by Dominic Reyes. Could be the start of the downfall. Got to look at it a little bit more, but for now, Krylov is the early pick. Now, once again, I'm going to remind you, if you want all the bets, jump in the Home of Fight Picks Premium membership. Use code HeyJob to get that 5-day free trial. Hopefully, a UFC 318 we cashed in. I expect us to do so. And if you need a sports book, hop on Wager Attack. It's available in all 50 states. There's a 200% free play bonus and 10% bonus on crypto deposits. So you deposit $100, you're going to get $200 in free play bonus, and you're going to get $10 added to your cash bonus if you deposit it with crypto. I use it all the time, and they don't have bad limits by any means. Available in all 50 states. Very easy sportsbook to use if you need one. Link down in the description below. We'll go to the main card, which only has 4 fights scheduled right now because the Pico Evloev fight got canceled. We'll see if they make something else, or they'll probably move Guskov, Krylov to the main card. But for now, only 4 fights on the main card. Magomedov coming in as a big favorite, -500. Marc-Andre Barriault, after a big win against Bruno Silva, comes back at +375. It was looking sketchy for Marc-Andre Barriault as far as his chin went. If you're getting knocked out cold by Dustin Stoltzfus, not a good look. But he comes back against Bruno Silva, the corpse of Bruno Silva, and puts a hole in his head. So he's still there, but he's 35. And I cashed in pretty nicely on Michael Venom Page against Magomedov his last time out as an underdog because, Magomedov is a guy that likes to be on the back foot, likes to poke at you while you're trying to rush in, counter you with stuff, and Michael Venom Page is not going to let you do that. Marc-Andre Barriault will let you do that because he is a come-forward guy, and I think this is a great matchup for Magomedov. I can understand why he's such a big favorite. I mean, I think he's just way more durable, a way better striker than Marc-Andre Barriault at this point. Where I could see it going wrong for Shara would be, if Marc-Andre Barriault is able to push him up against the cage, control him in the clinch, start getting that dirty boxing in, start getting those knees in, maybe drag him down with a takedown. We know Shara's ground game isn't great, but on the feet, I do expect Magomedov to have, a significant edge in the striking. So Marc-Andre's got to mix it up in this fight. He can't just go out there looking to, scrap it out on the feet for 15 minutes. He's got to mix it up if he wants to give himself a chance. There is that chance, but I think Shah is the rightful favorite. I'm going to take him for the early pick here. One loss to Michael Venom Page in a striking fight. I'm not going to write that off, man. I saw that coming from a mile away. I think Shah probably gets this one done. I'll take him for the early pick. Now we got Bryce Mitchell's bantamweight debut in the UFC. There's no odds on this fight, and I'm interested to see where they put Bryce Mitchell. Saeed Nurmagomedov is a guy that's usually pretty respected by the books, and he is fighting in, I don't want to say his home region, but, the OVs tend to get a lot of respect just from the books, but also when they're in Abu Dhabi. So maybe Saeed's going to be the favorite here. It's kind of what I'm thinking, but, Bryce is a guy that's accomplished more in his UFC career. I mean, he's made it higher as far as the rankings go in his UFC career. Saeed's gone through moments or periods of inactivity as well. What we know about Saeed, I mean, he's a fast striker who doesn't have the best gas tank. His wrestling is okay, but he kind of uses his wrestling base more defensively, and he has a nasty, nasty front choke game. And considering Bryce Mitchell's coming off a ninja choke loss to Jean Silva, this could age pretty badly for Bryce Mitchell because, Jean Silva, not exactly some great submission guy, but he did go out there and submit Bryce Mitchell. Said Nurmagomedov, probably some of the nastiest front chokes you'll ever see. Skinny arms, attacks it all the time. So I could see if Bryce Mitchell wants to look for a takedown here. I mean, he could easily be sticking his neck into a Said Nurmagomedov ninja choke or guillotine choke, whatever it is, Darce choke, something like that. I could see that happening a mile away because he goes for it every single fight. But, Bryce is going to be pretty big for 135. He's 5'10". I always thought he probably could make 135 because he's not a super jack guy. It's also a problem if you're stepping into a new weight class for the first time because, these guys are a lot faster. Every time you go down a weight class, you're talking about guys that are usually faster, that are used to the weight cut, know how much cardio they have to give. Will Bryce Mitchell's cardio be worse at 135 than at 145? Probably, man. Probably. You're talking about a guy that's going to have to drop 10 more pounds than he's used to. I never really thought Bryce Mitchell's cardio was the best, especially if you're able to give him resistance. I mean, he was slowing down against Jean Silva real quick. He was slowing down against Topuria real quick. Now, those are some great fighters, and I don't know that Said's on their level, but it's an interesting aspect to take into account. I think Said is going to be the early pick here. I think he'll probably be a very slight favorite. I don't expect either guy to be a big favorite. I think it'll be pretty close, but considering, Bryce's best attribute is his takedowns, his wrestling, he's going to have to put his neck into some front chokes real quickly. I don't know if I like that. For Bryce, I don't really see him ragdolling Said either. I think it's probably going to be competitive on the feet. I think Bryce's striking is okay, but it's a little bit slow, and I think Said might be a little bit faster. So I'm going to take Said for the early pick, the early lean. Bryce Mitchell also going into Abu Dhabi, he just put something on his Instagram today about how he had some encounter with some people in Abu Dhabi. So it was weird. Weird stuff for Bryce. Very odd fight for him to take to travel across the world to Abu Dhabi. But Said's the early pick. Let's move on. For what is probably the co-main event right now, we got Petr Yan and Marcus McGhee. I don't know why they're making this fight, but I think I'm okay with it, man. Like, do I want Petr Yan to fight Merab again? No, I don't. I don't want to see that again. So I guess you got to get some new faces in there. You got to give Petr Yan somebody new. And I guess, with Marcus McGhee being 35 years of age, it's kind of now or never. And this is going to be a tough fight, for Marcus McGhee because he is powerful, he is fast, but it's Petr Yan, dude. Like, Jonathan Martinez had this dude running for his life in round 3 with leg kicks. And he won the first 2 rounds for sure. I think the second round was pretty close. But there's levels to it, man. This is Petr Yan, okay? He's minus 335 here, which is, I think, is accurate. I mean, maybe even a little bit low. It is 3 rounds, though. That does give Marcus McGhee a little bit, to look at because Petr Yan's generally a slow starter, but Petr Yan beat Song Yadong in a 3-round fight. Could do that. I think Petr Yan's just going to be way more tactical. I think he's probably going to have more volume. Marcus McGhee's not a guy that has a ton of volume. He kind of likes to move around the cage, wait for his entries to land his hands and then get out. Got some pretty solid kicks himself. Loves to rip his kick to the body. And I expect Petr Yan to continue stalking him down, look for his openings, land some hard leg kicks as well. If you could take anything from that Martinez fight, rip the leg kicks real quickly, and they will add up as the fight goes on. So Petr Yan's going to be the early pick here. Way more experience at a higher level. Younger fighter as well. I still believe he has a lot left to give to the sport. Marcus McGhee's 35. If he goes in there and beats Petr Yan, you got to start talking about giving this guy a title shot. I mean, Sean O'Malley got a title shot after beating Petr Yan, so why not Marcus McGhee? Just a very odd booking in my opinion, but I'm okay with the fight. I think it should be a pretty solid fight overall. I'll take Petr Yan for the early pick. That brings us to the main event. Robert Whittaker comes in at a minus 141 favorite. Reinier de Ridder comes back at plus 121. De Ridder, 3-0 in the UFC, comes in, debut, submits GM3 in the third round, takes on Kevin Holland, submits him in round 1, takes on Bo Nickel, knocks him out in round 2. I've always thought Reinier de Ridder had a little bit of DDP in him, and then once he got it done against Bo Nickel, everyone saw it. And I think Reinier de Ridder is just one of these guys where physicality is such a huge thing. You know, if he is able to impose his will, we're talking about a guy that, you know, fought against Anatoly Malakin, the one championship champion. The dude looks like he's on every single steroid ever. You lost to him twice, but I think he could take a lot from those fights and try to implement it when he's going up against these smaller guys. And Robert Whittaker has struggled with the physicality in the past. I mean, you look at his fight with Khamzat Chimaev. Chimaev, very physical, very strong, gets on top of you, and Whittaker fumbles. I don't want to say he fumbles because he was an underdog, but he folds. Dricus du Plessis. There's a reason I bet on Dricus du Plessis against Robert Whittaker. Dricus, another guy that loves to impose his will, not going to quit on himself, and he loves to break you with his physicality. What did he do? Broke him with his physicality. Took him down in round 1. The weirdest takedown I've ever seen, but it worked. Elbowed him to the face, cut him open. Round 2, land a big shot, swarm him, and he's gone. Robert Whittaker's had a great career in the UFC, and he's done a lot of great things, but there are problems with his game. If he's not able to stand at range and strike with you to where he's the one leading the dance from the back foot, he kind of struggles in some aspects. Now, he's a great striker, and Reinier de Ridder's not. He's not a great striker, but he does have a lot of heart, got a decent chin, got a lot of forward pressure. He's long. He's big. We saw against Bo Nickel. He doesn't have to land, everything with his hands. He can land those big knees up the middle. Those big knees up the middle. We're talking about a guy who's 6'4". He's throwing a knee up the middle. I mean, you got to watch out for your chin, your chest, your gut, maybe your balls as well. I think he can make this thing scrappy. Now, another aspect to this is it's 5 rounds. Well, I don't know that Reinier de Ridder is going to be looking great in round 4 and round 5, but I do know he's going to have a lot of gas in the tank in the first couple of rounds. So if he could get Robert Whittaker out of there, I mean, I think he could get Robert Whittaker out of there. I think Reinier de Ridder's ground game is nasty as well. If he gets on top of Whittaker, the jiu-jitsu is insane. He flows really well. And we're talking about a guy against GM3. GM3 is a guy that usually comes on late, but he was the one that was able to win the scrambles against GM3 after wearing him down early and get the submission in round 3. So I'm going to take Reinier de Ridder here as the underdog for the early pick, man. I believe in this guy. I've never really been a huge believer in Whittaker, and I think this is the matchup. This is the type of matchup that he does not perform well against. So I'll take Reinier de Ridder for the early pick, and that's going to do it for the early pick video. I appreciate you for watching. Like the video for me. Subscribe to the channel. We'll be back here real soon with the content. Hopefully UFC 318 went well. I apologize that I have to record this before and I don't have a recap, but I'm going out of town to Vegas, so I want to make sure I get this video out to you guys. Appreciate y'all. Till next time. Hey, Job Picks.